Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Still We Persist. You're here with Aya. My name's Mia. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Shaina. I also use she, her, hers pronouns. And well, Mia already said that we're the co-hosts of Still We Persist. Welcome back.
Yeah, and if you've seen episodes from season one, you might recognize that we have the wonderful and lovely Tamara Lash with us here today. She will be joining us for a talk about Adrienne Maree Brown's book, Emergent Strategy, and we're so happy to have her here with us. But before we get more into it, we'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. And I'll be giving the one for Corvallis, Oregon. So yes, Oregon State University is located within the traditional homelands of the Marys River or Ampnefu Band of Kalapuya. And following the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in Western Oregon, where today living descendants of these people are part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians.
And I live in what is called Louisville, Kentucky, particularly the Jeffersontown neighborhood, which includes the homes of the Shawnee, Eastern Band of Cherokee, Adena, Osage, and Hopewell people. Through various actions by colonizers, most indigenous individuals were forcibly removed from these lands over time. However, many of these peoples remain in Kentucky, and they are the traditional stewards of the lands I'm working from today. Mia, would you mind introducing Tamara a little bit more for our audience?
Yeah, so we're really excited to have you on with us here, Tamara. I've had the great privilege of getting to work with Tamara my sophomore year in college as they were the IA GTA. Yeah, and we're just really happy to have you back on for Still We Persist. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more, Tamara?
Yeah, I can introduce myself. So my name is Tamara. I use she and her pronouns. I once upon a time was the IAGA and currently am the social justice program manager at the YWCA of Greater Portland. And I have a land acknowledgement pulled up too because I'm in Portland. So let me get to it. Portland, Oregon, and Multnomah County were the traditional homelands of the Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Cowlitz bands of Chinook, Tualatin Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. And today, people from these bands have become part of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indian, as well as the Chinook Nation and Cowlitz Nation in Washington State. So that's who I am. I'm coming from Portland, super jazzed to be here. Like, I cannot explain enough how excited I am to be back in this space. It gives me energy. I'm excited. Can't wait to get into the conversation.
Yeah, I think we're all feeling the same way. We have very positive reactions to finally getting to work together and especially talk about this book. So I'll start off. Mia and Tamara, I had heard of this book, but I didn't read it until it was assigned for a class that I'm taking. And Mia actually mentioned it to me a few weeks ago, so kind of some weird coincidence. But I'm wondering for both of you, what drew you to this book and why did you want to talk about it on Still We Persist?
I can go first. I was given this book. I have it next to me because I'm like, it's always nearby. I was given this book by Charlene Martinez. So, like, another connection to people doing amazing work with Aya and women of color on Oregon State's campus. And she gave it to me, she gave it to the whole cohort of Promise interns. So, when I graduated in undergrad, I did an internship with DCE and OSU, and Charlene like headed it all up. And this was her going away present to us. And truthfully, it sat on my bookshelf for like a good long while, and I didn't really open it up for maybe a year or so. And once I opened it up, it was like the words on the page were speaking to me in a way that I have never felt so connected to a book before. And I think it gave me a pathway, and I felt seen. I felt seen in my ways that I like to do social justice work. I think I like to call myself like a soft activist. Like I really do things through like love and empathy and like pausing and recognizing that we're going to make mistakes and we have to keep moving forward through it. And how do we call people in and build community and capacity? And it's just like every single thing about this book came back to how I see myself moving within our liberation movements. And so it was like, how do I fold this into every single thing I do? And so like, that's why it's always close to me, because I'm constantly coming back to it and trying to find new ways that I can bring it into my work and love talking about it. So when Mia said that we were going to be talking about emergent strategy and you all want me to come on, I was like, oh, heck yes, I could spend my life giving this book to everyone. Like literally every single training I give or facilitate for someone, at the end, I am constantly saying, read Emergent Strategy. Like this is going to be your map to moving forward.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I relate so much to what you said, Tamara. I think something that really stood out to me is when you said like I connected with this book in a way that I haven't connected with the book before, and like I share that similar feeling. I think it's a way that Adrian just brings in concepts of nature to ground us like in this movement work. And like I'm an environmental science major, and that's just like a way I feel about nature that hasn't been like, or that I've read written down, like written in such a way that really embodies the way I feel connected to nature and like want to use those lessons in like the work that I'm doing. So it's just like a really, I don't know really what to call this genre, like what this book would be categorized under, but it's so open and just like, I think really allows you to connect to it and then have your own ideas flourish from it. So yeah, I really love the book. And how I was came to reading the book was through the Hattie Redmond Women and Gender Center. We were reading it as a staff read. So that was my first contact with the book, was reading it as a team. And that's how I got to know Emergent Strategy.
It's like grounding. It's a really grounding book. That's what I was thinking, Mia, as you were talking, with the imagery of nature, and just you can see yourself reflected in it, and you can see yourself reflected in other spaces. Like I think about the quote of change is constant, be like water. Like I can envision myself as water, or I can envision myself as the mushroom and like filtering out the toxins and bringing something new into life. Like I can see myself within nature and the things around me. And I think this book really helped facilitate that understanding for me and how we move forward. It's just so good. Like, oh, so good.
Something that Adrian brings up a lot is like, you know, things are always changing. We're in like a constant state of flux. And we have to, you know, be adaptable within that change. And then something that another author, Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who's like I feel like has a comrade text that goes along with Emergent Strategy. Something that they ask is, what is your dorsal fin? So like relating to dolphins and marine mammals, like what is it that keeps you stable in like waves, when waves of movement are like happening all around you? Like what is it that keeps you grounded? And I think we have like a lot of great examples from Emergent Strategy of how to do that. But for you, Tamara and Shaina, what would you say your stability mechanism is, your dorsal fin?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to community. Like the first thing that popped into my mind is like, what is my dorsal fin, or what stabilizes me is really my partner. Like if I'm going to be completely honest. So like shout outs to Adriana. She's in the other room. She's working. She's probably listening to me talk. She just laughed. That I think when I'm really stressed out, or I'm feeling the weight of what's happening around me, or I don't know where I'm supposed to be in the movement towards liberation and justice, I like go back to a moment that I had in the beginning of summer when the Black Lives Matter movement was really kind of having a resurgence. And I would see everyone around me who was going to the protest or like just getting connected in different ways. And I wasn't going to protest, but I was like having really intentional conversations, and I was bringing people to books and readings, and I was trying to like be a healing person for those in my community. And I also felt like I wasn't doing enough, and I felt like my form of activism like wasn't enough, and it wasn't good enough. And it was really like an intentional conversation I had with Adriana at my parents' house as I was crying on the couch, feeling really bad about how I like wasn't an activist, or I didn't feel like an activist, and I felt like I was letting a lot of people down. That she kind of like regrounded me and regrouped me and was like, no, you're doing your intentional like outlook on activism and what you should be doing, and that is good enough and it's needed, right? And so I think she consistently brings me back down to earth and like recognizes that you're doing good work, doing good justice, and like this is how you move forward. And I think it's important to have those people in your life that you can continue to go back to and will call you out, because there's moments where like I need to do better and I get called out on it, and like she'll call me out on those things, and also be there to like recenter and reground me. Also, so weird, I have my like little squishy thing is, I think it's a shark, but I'm pretty sure it has a dorsal fin. I don't know where that is on the
It's
body,
so cute.
but I just realized that as we were talking. So yeah, I think that's my grounding stabilizer for sure.
Have you just had that in your hands since we started recording?
Yeah, I have. So I also, I guess these are stabilizers or grounding things. Like I fidget a lot.
Okay.
And so I have little squishy fidget things around me. And this is like a bear. I don't really know, maybe a squirrel, but this other one is a shark. And I have had it the entire time we've been talking.
That
Okay.
is no coincidence. Wow.
But what about you, Shaina? What's your dorsal fin?
I have had a very hard time integrating some of the metaphors and some of the ways that Adrienne Maree Brown talks about nature and connects it to like human behavior and human communities. Like I just think in a very different way. So like the idea of the dorsal fin, I had to be like, okay, let me hear what Tamara has to say, and then maybe like I'll understand the analogy here. So I think I can answer the question now. I have figured out pretty recently that for me, like conversations with one person are like very helpful for getting the advice I need, or like validating reactions I'm having, or like showing me, okay, it really isn't as bad as like my brain is making something out to be when I'm alone. So I would say my stability mechanism is whatever is on my mind, or in whatever way I'm like thinking of myself as inadequate, there's usually one person who can help me address that. So I will like talk to my supervisors if it has to do with work, or talk to family members or friends. And like, community is very important to me too. Like Tamara, I'm very glad you talked about that. But I also find myself needing like a small group or like one-on-one conversations to really ground myself.
Mm-hmm.
And Mia, since you asked the question, do you want to answer next?
Yeah, sure. It's taken me a while to come to know what my dorsal fin is, or what keeps me grounded, really. But like you all have said, I'll echo it. It really does come down to community and the relationships that I've built. Yeah, so important. And when you have moments of feeling down or like not yourself, you have those people around you to support you through that process of coming back to yourself. And yeah, it's really the community. But for like self-grounding practices, I'd say I really can connect with myself when I'm like just dancing in the parking garage or like in front of a mirror. Yeah, I just feel like, ooh, it's all flowy. Yeah, it's that's how I stay connected with my body. Um,
And those
Yeah.
things are important, right? Like, I think in the ways that that connects back to Adrienne Maree Brown, and she talks about small is all and how you have to change the relationships that you have, like one-on-one and with your body first, because those are going to like amplify and ripple out to the world around you. And like, that's important. Like how we're in community with our body, like how we allow ourselves to move. Where I was in a conversation earlier today where I know I haven't been allowing myself to feel to the full extent that I should be feeling. And so, like, how do I be really intentional and make those shifts with myself and my body so that I'm allowing myself to fully feel? So then those around me can feel the totality of their emotions and like use our emotions as guideposts and signs to move us forward. I think that's emergent strategy, right? Of like being more present and less like prepared and engaging with each other. And just like, it's just so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I really love that you bring that. You mentioned that part of the book where one small is all, and then also to be less prepared and more present, which is kind of, Still We Persist has taken me on that journey because at first, I'd have like, I still outline like the shows for myself. That's something I think I need to do. But like there was so much pressure in like creating that outline and becoming prepared for like a conversation that actually just kind of flows. So just practicing being more present is definitely something that I've found helps to be just more engaged. And yeah, so like the energy that you are being present with like can be vibrated out to other people, kind of how you said.
And as we like are more present, I think that also pushes back on white supremacy. Like as you were talking, I was thinking about the different characteristics of white supremacy, and one of them is perfectionism. And so I think the idea of being super present or like being super prepared is this like notion that we can reach perfectionism. But if we pause and we're like, no, we're just going to be present and have the conversation that is meant to have in the moment, then that's us like in some ways, like a small way, like pushing it back against white supremacy and the tenets that it thinks we should live by are different characteristics of white supremacy. And so, yeah, I think I've been trying to do that a lot more in my life. I will definitely say that I am someone who wants to be perfect at everything I do. And so, as I pull back a bit and allow myself to be present and allow myself to make mistakes and recognize that I don't know if it's from this book or where I learned it, that like growth isn't a linear practice. And so, just allowing the process to take place and outfold itself in whatever way and form or facet it's supposed to, and not forcing things to happen in a particular way. So I love that still we persist took you on that journey, Mia, because conversations are good and we should just let them flow in whatever form or facet that they need to be flowing.
Definitely.
Well, for folks who haven't read the book, could you all describe what emergent strategy is and what it means to you? And Tamara, you kind of brought it up a little bit, so maybe you can start.
Oh my gosh, what isn't emergent strategy? I'm
You're
like,
right.
oh my god, what is emergent strategy? I mean, I think it's a way of being, uh, a way that we can be in relationship with those around us, and it really leans into watching nature and recognizing that nature has the framework and the roadmap for how we can be in right community with each other. And it has different like tenets, or I don't even know what she calls them, but different like things about it. So being okay, like small is all, or more present, less prepared, and different little tenets that pops up every now and again. And I think for me, emergent strategy is really, I don't know. I think I'm holding the book. I'm like, I think it's like allowing myself to, yeah, just be present and to feel. I think emergent strategy has really created intentional space for me to bring my emotions into what I do and allow my emotions to guide me and force me to pause in some moments where maybe I'm like wanting to move too quick. Um, yeah, it's good. It's like love. Emergent strategy is love and hope, and like it's also critical analysis and everything that you could ever want. So if you haven't read it, then you should probably go get it like now.
Yeah, and just going off of that, I'd say that Emergent Strategy is like bending time for yourself. It's like really embodying slowness and taking those pauses, to, like Tamara said, to feel, to be present. And it's really those small, like the small actions, those small choices, that create the larger, like, networks of change, the larger, the wave. It's like you can think of like these choices to pause, to be present, as like little particles, that create the larger wave of change that we're trying to move forward to. And I think that's what, at least when I read, I think that's what Adrienne Maree Brown is talking about. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Shaina?
I was just going to quote from, I think it's in the introduction of the book, how Adrienne Maree Brown describes emergent strategy. There's a whole list, which I think is like related to what both of you were saying, that there's no one definition for emergent strategy. But I'll just add, Brown says, now it's like ways for humans to practice being in right relationship to our home and each other, to practice complexity and grow a compelling future together through relatively simple interactions. And it's a philosophy for how to be in harmony and love in and with the world. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a lot, or it could be almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a big center of thinking about emergent strategy, and also a common response in like our answers to what our like dorsal fin is, or what grounds and stabilizes us, or the community relationships we have. So I was wondering if you guys could offer to the Aya community some practices, maybe that, you know, you're working towards, or some that you have already begun to practice, but some things that are helpful for building authentic relationships and going into the mindset of being authentic in the relationships that you're a part of.
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I think of Gloria Anzaldúa's Conocimiento. Like that comes up so often. And for folks who don't know, it talks about needing to build rapport and trust with people, like be in really good right relationship before attending to any task at hand. And so that's like a mindset and a framework that I like to bring into all of the work that I do. And I think that's done through like listening first, and like active, like true active listening, without wanting to respond or think about what I'm going to say next, but with the understanding and the basis that I want to like get to know you. I want to know the experiences that you've had. I want to know what you've struggled with. I want to know where I've messed up and you expected something more from me and I didn't give that to you. And so where you're calling me in to do better, do more work. I think it looks like accepting feedback as a gift and taking that feedback and then folding it into your daily practice. So it's not enough for someone to give you feedback on how you could have been better and then you just not doing anything with it. Like, no, you need to intentionally pause, maybe journal, meditate on it, whatever you do, and then fold that change into your day-to-day practice to make sure that, again, you're in right relationship with people and recognizing that harm is going to happen. Like in the same way that mistakes are going to happen, harm is going to be made. And so we need to be intentional about how we deal with that harm moving forward. So like, what are our systems of accountability? How do we outline those systems of accountability when we first engage in relationship, or we first engage in community building or coalition building, whatever it is? Like, how do we say this is how we're holding each other accountable, and these are the steps we're going to take when someone doesn't follow a community guideline that we've set out? And knowing that that's all coming from love. Like, I think a lot about Bell Hooks' love ethic, and like Bell Hooks' love ethic and emergent strategy are the two main things that I ground my like social justice practice in. And so how are we like also coming to everything we do with love? And like, how are you attending to your relationships with love? And like recognizing that love is investment in growth.
I have a very similar answer, Tamara, except I wasn't going to say it nearly as well as you did. But my answer, I think, is making sure that you are really understanding what someone else is telling you, like especially working with Aya. I've never really done work like this. We're not all in the same place. We can't like really see body language. We don't have time to just sit and talk like we usually would. So I have learned to ask a lot of questions like in an appropriate way and be really sure that I know exactly what someone else needs, what they meant when they share an idea for our work. I think I've tended to like try to be efficient and just make assumptions, and I'm learning not to do that, to like take the time to talk and ask questions.
Yeah, and that's something I really appreciate, Shaina, as being a part of the team. I really appreciate the questions that you asked me as I'm like trying to figure out an event idea or something like that. I really do feel like an authentic relationship with you. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to do
Same here.
that. um, I don't have much to add there. I think like what you two both said really summed it up for me. And it's something I'm trying to get better at also. And yeah, absolutely starts with listening and like wanting to listen through like this lens of love. Like that's the foundation of the relationship. Whether it's a relationship to a person or like the environment or whatever you're trying to learn or understand. But yeah, thank you for sharing, both of you. I think we'll ask 2 more questions or like have time for 2 more.
Yeah.
Is there anything, Shaina, that you wanna ask, or Tamara too, even? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just like giddy again because I'm back with Aya and I want to know all the things, and maybe I just want like hot tea on what Aya is doing and where folks are at, and just I'm interested in how maybe even you're folding emergent strategy into Aya's practice outside of Still We Persist, or where are you hoping to see growth happen? Where has emergent strategy allowed you to see maybe gaps within Aya programming or spaces where we have done really well? I don't know. So like, I don't know if this is connected to the thing or just be really interested in like, what is like, how's Aya doing? Like, what are you all wanting to invest more time in? Like, what do you want to be more present with? Where have you pushed yourself and where do you feel yourself being safe, but you need to be pushed a little bit? Which is not emergent strategy, but just me, again, wanting to know.
no, totally. It totally relates back to emergent strategy and like how we're practicing that in our work. I feel like that was a really full question. Thanks for asking it.
I can start and maybe I'll actually come up with something that's a useful response. So we've been talking a little bit about what it means, what the word woman of color means, who falls within that community. And I think some of that has come from not being on campus. At least I'm feeling like we're not necessarily reaching as many people as we could, and we're not really sure what the community even needs and who do we ask? How do we find the people that we need and who might need the resources that we have, especially because a couple of our like 4 members on the Aya team and 2 of us are completely new to this. I wouldn't say like we're struggling with anything, but it's a question that's been on my mind, like who is our community and what do we all need?
Hear that, listeners? Reach out. Leave comments down below or like circle back, because
Please.
I think there's like, that's a really intentional question. I think that's something that Aya has constantly grappled with. And I'm sure it's even amplified more on an online platform of who is our audience, who are we reaching, and how are we being like really accountable to your needs. And recognizing that like the four of you who are doing Aya work also are Aya. So how are you being accountable to your own needs too in the process of creating content or programming for Aya and everything that you all are?
Yeah, so something that came up in our in last term's reflection, back on maybe what our needs are, something that came up from the peer facilitators was that they wanted to be more grounded in what feminism is, or what being a woman of color feminist means. And so Shaina has actually done a really great job in providing like resources, whether it's like videos, articles, or books, for us to all read. And there might be, there's discussions right now about doing like a like an Aya book discussion group, which I think could be really fulfilling if we get the engagement. Something else, I think this term, we're really trying to encourage or we're doing programming centered around community engagement. So like with Woke Fest coming up, we're doing like a recipe share with recipes kind of coming from your home, or like what grounds you in your own like woman of color expression, or just like family recipes. So that's something that we're doing. I'm excited for that, as well as like it's an open mic night performance share. And really, like, I hope that people engage with that, because like that'll show us like who our community is. And I think the events have like really good potential, as well as like a collectively creating futures workshop, which is something we're brainstorming with Charlene Martinez about too later. So I'm excited for those conversations, because I think it'll help us grow in as a community, because those are all things, like events, that we can do together, have conversations together, like eat together, like as best we can in a virtual sense, and share our voices. Yeah, so I'm hoping that there's engagement with that. But in wanting engagement means also we have to like start at the foundation, which is engaging ourselves, right? And like the work of other centers. And so like listening, being like really finely attuned to maybe like it's not a direct comment, or like a direct message to the Aya team, but is there like something in the OSU news that we saw? I don't know, like what could our community's needs be, and just listening for that. But yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that. Also, go off on this recipe share. I'm like excited for that. How do I get the link so I can so I can make whatever you all are cooking? Because I love that. And I think it speaks to the way, in relating it back to emergent strategy, of like adaptability. And I think Aya was really formed and created in this adaptable space of being able to shift and change with the needs of whoever is connected to Aya in the given moment. And so seeing that you all are finding really intentional ways to want to be right with the community, like the Aya community, whatever that is, or the CRC community, or just with your small like Aya team community, I think is really important to recognize. And again, like if we want to go back to small is all, then those like small relationships that you have with each other and you have with yourself are going to amplify and ripple out into the rest of the OSU community, the world, so on and so forth. Like really weird. I was doing a training for this organization, and after the training ended, I got an email from one of the people who were there, and they told me that they somehow on their YouTube feeds, the Still We Persist videos came up.
Oh,
And like this is like up in Portland with like, I'm not telling anybody about these things like going on, and it's somehow coming across people's feeds. So like also want to give that shout out to you all. Like you're reaching people and it's growing and it's becoming a thing that maybe you're not hearing about, but just trust that like as you're in right relationship with yourself and with those around you, it's going to reach the people who need to get it. So some cool stuff is happening and definitely in the works.
That is very cool. And thank you for telling us that, Tamara, because I'm always agonizing, like, how do we get more folks to watch this who want to be listening to conversations like this? So really good to hear that it's getting out there.
Oh, also, this might be too soon to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways, just so the universe knows. But the Shaina did relay to the team today that there might be potential for this to be in podcast form pretty soon.
Oh my God, go off.
Yeah. So ooh, it's been said on recording. Universe, take that as you will.
That is really
So you can listen to this while you're, if you're cooking something that Aya has taught you how to make, might be some good like combination of Aya things there.
Yeah.
Tamara, sorry, I think I talked over you.
No, you're fine. I'm just like whispering that I love that and I'm excited. And I just think you all are doing such great work. So I am very, again, like so grateful and feel really lucky to be sharing space with you all today.
And that feeling is mutual. As a wrap up, is there anything you would like to share with the Aya community?
I want to share my biggest like thanks and gratitude, I think, to the Aya community. Not even I think, like to the Aya community. Just because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for Aya, and I wouldn't be as confident or comfortable in front of people, and I wouldn't have had the space to practice what authentic care and community looks like if it wasn't for Aya. Like Aya has really taken me in, or took me in when I was a grad student, and allowed me the space to grow. And Mia, you gave me so much grace. And I think about how Nicole gave me so much grace, and then Sienna and Alex, and like everybody who has been connected to Aya has really like helped me in a special way that I didn't know I needed to be held. And it's just such a special community. Like I am thankful for you all, and definitely like want to say, if you aren't connected to Aya, then like get connected to Aya. Pronto stat. You want to be there, you want to be connected. It is going to fill your soul and your heart in ways that you don't even realize it is, and think until you walk away from it. So like it wasn't until I was like wrapping up my time at OSU and left left the Women and Gender Center that I truly could reflect back on the impact that it had on my life and how much I learned in that space and grew in that space. And so like really, really lean into it all and allow yourself the like time to feel everything that you're feeling as you're working with Aya. And I would say to the people listening, just, I don't know, take care of yourself. Like do whatever that looks like. Sleep if you need to sleep, change your schedules around. Like I used to work from 8 to 4, and then I was like, yeah, no, not going to happen in the winter time. So I changed my schedule and now I'm 9 to 5. Like whatever you need to do, like change things so that you can be your best and most present self in the things that you want to be connected to, and like intentionally find what gives you energy and where you want to be connected, and like do that. And also pause and like sleep for a day or a day and a half if that's what you need to.
I think that's a perfect ending to this conversation. Anything you want to add, Mia?
Yes, just like my overwhelming gratitude and thanks to you, Tamara. Um, yeah, I feel like I learned so much from you. And like just in your message now to the Aya community, to people listening, like I feel like in a moment of pause right now from intaking that those words. Yeah, it's been great to be able to get to work with you. And after you said that, you know, it's when you leave Aya that you can actually truly like process and reflect on how much Aya has gifted us who has been connected with it. Um, it's like that is making me want to savor the moments more. So it's good to rehear that message now.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
it's a special place. It's definitely special. And I think about like the Aya chats that you have with Shazneen, or like the little, just the moments where you can sit and be in community with each other, and the intentional like social media spaces that are carved out, like the Aya Instagram, like go off. I think about Megan and all the time that she put into that last year, whenever I was there, like just like all the things, like everything is so beautiful and organic, and there's small spaces outside of Aya that you'll get to pick that up, but truly like Aya is just a melding together of, I think, what we could be on a like larger collective scale. And so yeah, savor it, like sit in that, smile, laugh with each other, virtually hug each other, cook meals online together, read, play music, read each other's tarot cards. Like, I don't know, like find spaces where you're really connecting, and don't let it just be a workplace, but like let it be a place that fills you up from your core, and then overflow whatever is coming out to the folks around you, because it's so special.
Well, thank you again, Tamara, for being here. This was really fun. I'm so glad we all got to get together, and we'll definitely have to do it again. And we also want to thank the folks over at KBVR for doing most of the work to get this podcast out, or this webcast out to you all. Final words, Mia?
no, I think we said it all. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you all.